It
Well,
has
I
invitation.
take advantage of the conclusion. What a perfect way to say, while it's the end, it's the commencement. And I used to think because it was the end of of a completion of high school or college or something, that it was the end. And I remember in one of my first jobs where my boss took me to the dictionary and pointed out what commencement means. So while it is the end, it's the beginning at the same time. So how perfect to have the invitation. And part of what I've been doing this afternoon is just so awesome. Two things that I'll, as an invitation, those of you who've heard me carry on about this before, is the IONS conference is July the 18th to the 21st. And some of the IONS leadership and other in our network are already primed to the what's next after that conference. So continuing this theme, I didn't remember hearing it was the New Story Summit. And I hadn't heard that Mark was in Findhorn, but Mark is definitely one of my connectors as well from early IONS conferences. So that being said, that's an invitation for us to figure out how we may live stream, like happened at CCC 19, some like Charles Eisenstein and others. But I just heard this morning that my friend Roger Nelson at Princeton is also going to be there. And he is one of the premier scientists on fields. And oh my God, if I could only help people understand the power of fields. Remember when we went down to Princeton, Jane? You and Carol Gorelick and I went and we talked with Juanita Brown, because what's happening in a World Cafe creates that feeling of coherence. And I wanted Juanita and Brenda and Roger and Bob to meet so we could hear the commonality stories. So I just had an email from Roger Nelson, and the Global Consciousness Project is now housed under ION's website. I've already looked at it. And Roger's going to speak at the conference. So he is definitely one we want to pick up on. The power of nature to teach us is so literally, all around us, including within us. And somehow we're missing these messages. So to me, Roger Nelson and Brenda Dunn, the folks at Princeton, are the major researchers on field phenomenon, which is what shows up in these collective experiences, back to how we keep this going. Is we're cultivating a culture of conversational leadership in St. Petersburg, Florida. And what that means, it's fields for networks to show up. And that's where I've been for the last several hours. Back to our point of what's next. How do we elders connect up with the young people? And please check out Our Children's Trust. Heather, are you in Oregon? I forgot where you are. So you already know about Our Children's Trust. Today's lunch was figuring out strategies of launching the Our Children's Trust Florida, connecting with the colleges and universities and where each of these 8 plaintiffs live. So that's back to Ben and what he so generously offered through these months and years is using the technologies. That's what keeps coming up with my various networks in this last week, is using the technologies that we, just because we're all in St. Petersburg, we can't always be in the room. And so Zoom works if we're around the globe, which I was earlier today with the MIT group that I'm part of. People were speaking from every continent. And then today we're speaking in the same city. Here we're all over the network that we're putting into this room, but we are in the room. And that's where the consciousness arises. And that's where I believe learning about fields, the other word that kept coming up through this week is learning about systems. And finally, let's get back to it, consciousness. It's all consciousness, folks. So how about that for one word? That was an accordion word.
Thank you, Sharon Joy. More invitations.
So that's the invitation. IONS and Our Children's Trust. Thank you.
Hello, this is Catherine. Can you hear me? Hi.
We can, yes.
You can hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding. Something worked. I don't know what happened. Great. Well, I'm sorry. I've been trying to log on since the beginning. I've been having technical difficulties, and I'm just grateful. And to everyone, I missed a response of one-liners and all that wonderful information. What came to me was coming back to that point of, as we've talked about, communication and being open. And it's when one person becomes conscious, it's contagious. And the more I become conscious, the more I see. It's like the window opens, cracks a little bit, and then more. And then the line of connectivity keeps growing. And I have to look also. I have to be aware that things are happening around me. And so I'm just really grateful. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to participate as much as I wanted to, because I did have something really quick about the Footprint Coalition for Climate Change. It's huge with nanotechnologies and filters, capturing the carbon, the CO2s, and then turning them into reusable sources. So they have a 10-year goal to bring these emissions back down to a climate level change of bringing down 2 degrees Celsius. So I just want to inform everyone to check that out. The site isn't completed yet, but they are actively using this technology and it is working. So there's hope. That's a good thing. So I just wanted to put that out, and thank you everybody for being there. And like I said, apologize for not being able to communicate more. Thank you.
And just tell us again your name and if you have a link.
Oh yeah, hi, this is Kat from California.
Right.
Santa Barbara. Yay.
Monarch.
I'm here.
Right, that's your.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, and Sharon Joy, everybody. Love y'all. Thanks.
I have 2 invitations related to the pop-up gift economy element of Now What. So the engagement piece, the conversational piece is completing today. And there has been, as part of the plan of this, the vision of this, that we would also have a pop-up gift economy that would unleash generosity in multiple directions, a nourishing flow of resources. So stay tuned for that. There are 2 ways that can work. Well, actually 3. Some of you had a part in convening and hosting this work. And for those of you, I think I've already extended invitations to everyone who might be in that role. But those, if not, and you see yourself in that role, those people are being invited to make requests for a share of some of the resources, particularly money that might be contributed. Many of you, when you registered, indicated you were open to receiving a financial request. And so there'll be a request going out to everyone who did that. And if you didn't opt into that, or you didn't register, you can re-register and opt in if you'd like to at least consider, receive the more specific and detailed invitation to make a contribution. And then if you have, part of the money will then go to be divided up among the hosts and conveners who played a role in producing all of this. But part of the money is going to be set aside to support projects out in the world. So anyone who was a participant, who was involved in some work and is interested in seeking some funding, again, these are probably modest amounts. We don't know what kind of generosity will be unleashed though, so who's to say? There'll be an invitation to submit a proposal or a request for funding and name what that's for. And then a collective and collaborative democratic process using a couple of different online tools will allow us to collectively decide among those proposals which ones to fund and how much out of the portion of the pool that will be set aside for that. Some of the percentages and all these things are still kind of being worked out, but the other thing about this is there's a non-monetary element as well. Money is certainly not everything, not nearly the most important thing. And so if any of you have offers of support for projects that might come in and you want to name, you know, I have this capacity, I could offer this gift in support of that work, that can be part of the pool of generosity that flows. And the other thing is that you might want to make an offer towards another iteration of this work, of this kind of convening, whether it's conference weaving or deep dives like this, or other ways that we can use this general set of processes in service to the Great Turning, if you wanted to make an offer, sort of paying forward, if you will. Although we're trying to avoid language of paying in all of this. Everything is a gift. Nothing is expected or required. Your presence here has been a gift. In fact, we may even have a piece of this as an optional participant dividend. So people who participated might be able to opt in for a third pool of that funding. Simply as one small acknowledgement of the fact that none of this happens if people don't show up, and really you're the ones creating the value. Any other invitations? We have just a minute or so here. All right, thank you all.